All right, characters, we've been learning about weather, and today what we need to do is differentiate between weather and climate. What is the difference between those two things? And it's a really important clarification. And so we're going to spend a little time on it so that you uh, know when we talk about climate, we're not talking about weather. When we talk about weather, we're not talking about climate. They're just not the same thing. One way to remember it, just a little phrase that I use, is climate tells you what clothes to buy and weather tells you what clothes to wear. And what that means is that all of you own a winter coat because you expect it in Montana here to get cold enough in the winter that you will need to wear that coat at some point. But we might have a day in January where it's 50 degrees and you wear shorts. So that's weather, okay? But a long-term pattern of weather, and when we say long-term, we're talking about something that's factored over, say, decades, like at least 30 years. That's what an area's climate is. Weather is short-term. It can be one day, it can be 1 hour, it can be a week, a month, a season, even 1 year, but weather is not longer than that. A good example would be the winter that we had in 2020, where it really didn't snow, and it really wasn't that cold. That's a weather event, not a climate event. So what do we use to determine a climate zone? There are two things that we use. One is the average temperature and the annual precipitation. So you would agree that in Arizona, the average temperature is higher than it is here in Polson. So that's an example of temperature. To give you an example of precipitation, here in Polson, we average 15 inches of rain every year. In Baltimore, Maryland, on the East Coast, they average 50 inches. That's 50 inches of rain every year. And then in Forks, Washington, which is made famous by the Twilight movies, they average 13 feet of rain. So very different amounts there. So what controls the temperature and the precipitation in an area? Some things you are familiar with, some things you're going to look at in this assignment. One is the latitude of an area. Okay, so that basically means how far away from the equator is that particular area. And Polson, we're about halfway in between the North Pole and the equator. Sorry, having a little technical difficulty. Here we go. The next one is elevation. So the higher the elevation, the colder it is. We're at about 3,000 feet here in Polson. Being nearby water, being near the ocean, in our case, being near Flathead Lake, it's actually a little bit colder here on summer days and a little bit warmer here on winter days than it is in Kalispell or Missoula, which aren't near that large body of water. And that's why we can go cherries here. And also mountains, they can break up storms, they can rechange wind patterns, they can produce more rain, those sort of things. So what are some climate zones? Here are some examples. There are polar climate zones, desert climate zones, highlands, tropical climate zones. These are all specific examples. You've got an assignment to do today where you're going to look at some climate zones. Make sure that you get that thing done, all of the worksheet, and then get submitted to the Google website. Awesome.